the sound system, can it go any higher?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, we are going to do our best to project. Is that a little better if I kind of yell as I talk?
Yes.
Okay, I will keep that up as much as I can, but, you know, just wave your hands if it gets a little too soft, because yelling into a mic for a long time might be difficult. I will first call the meeting to order. Clerk McMullen, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Chair. Present. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Present.
Councilmember Murdoch.
Present.
Councilmember Richardson. Present. Councilmember Robb. Councilmember Bo.
Present.
And Mayor Edmonds. Present. We do have a quorum with all present.
Please stand as you're able to face the flag, which is this little guy right here. Tonight, for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion from council for approval of the agenda. So moved by Councilmember Bo, supported by Councilperson Richardson. Any edits or proposed changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, please say aye in favor of the agenda. Aye. Any opposed to the agenda as presented? Thank you. So I'm going to give a rundown for the good of the people here with us of the plan for this evening and for the expectations of this evening, as well as for the next couple nights, because there's lots going on. So just as a point of clarification, what we are doing tonight versus in the next couple nights. Tonight is a public hearing specifically about the issue of affordability and the Water Street project. This is not the time when the development overall will be discussed. The developers and financiers are not here with us this evening. We're not discussing the purchase agreement. This is our chance to listen to people around the issue of affordability and the International Village development. Tomorrow night is our regular council meeting. We are going to bring it back into this room because it is bigger than the council chambers. But I want you guys to know that tomorrow night, Depot Town is generally a lot more full. So while there's sort of no parking right now, there will be less. So that lot across the street that you get to off of River, what we call the Maple Street lot, is also free parking. So I encourage you to note that. A lot of people aren't aware of that parking lot. Or try to come here on a bus or by foot or wheelchair or bicycle or some other route. So we will be back in this room tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So on that agenda is the International Village Purchase Agreement, as well as a number of other agenda items. The International Village item is first, or pretty near first. So it's near the front of, the agenda. That will be the night that we have presentations from the International Village team, from staff, where we'll have discussion among council, debate, and potentially moving into voting. So that is tomorrow night, is really where the discussion part will be happening. Tonight is really around listening. I do want to make note for people that Wednesday night at the Planning Commission meeting, which is at 7 o'clock back in City Hall, we do have an affordable housing presentation coming forward for a senior affordable housing project that would be on the west part of Michigan Avenue. So I would hope that those of you interested in supporting that in our community will come out and share your support for that project. That'll be presented site plan review to the Planning Commission on Wednesday night. So that's what's happening tonight and the next couple nights. What we're starting off with this evening is a 15-minute presentation by 3 residents of the community, Amber Fellows, Piran Gaines, and Kyle Hunter. They are members of the Human Relations Commission, but this is not a presentation of the commission. It's of members who are on the commission as they are citizens. After that, we will have audience participation, and you can speak. We'll have audience participation, and that will be really the time for you to have your 3 minutes to speak. The way that will work, and I'll remind people of the guidelines when we get to that, is that we'll take people who have signed up on the list that was by the door first. People will have 3 minutes, and then we will take people from the audience. So if you did not sign up on that list, you still have an opportunity to speak there. So that's sort of how this evening is going to run. We will do our best with the microphones that we have and the stretch that they have, etc. But we will start out with a presentation from the three I just mentioned.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me in the back? Can you hear me all the way in the back? Can you hear me in the front? Excellent. My name is Kyle Hunter. I am a lifelong resident of Ypsilanti, Michigan, stayed for 2 years where I stayed in Austin, Texas. I was recently given the honor of serving on the Human Rights Commission. So for that, I would like to thank the City Council and Mayor Edmonds. And I would like to thank everybody who came out tonight, all of the residents. This could not have had any success or impact without your participation. To put it blunt, we will be discussing the International Village Purchase Agreement tonight. We may not be discussing it in the context that City Council defines, but this will be an information sharing session, and we hope to be informed as much as we hope to inform our low-income residents, our housing insecure residents, our homeowner residents, and everybody in between. One of the commitments that I've tried to stay true to since my time on the HRC has been centralizing the concerns of members who have been underinformed and underrepresented. I think that unless we have a thorough examination of all the factors that go into this agreement, we risk further marginalizing community members that are facing some pretty rough housing and security situations, myself included, which has motivated me to put forth a measure with the HRC to have this meeting in the first place. I think that this is serving to foster dialogue that has been sorely lacking in this community between its leadership and its most vulnerable members. In fact, actually, I'll just cut that. I don't think that there has been a satisfactory effort made on the part of the City Council or Mayor Edmonds to ensure adequate engagement equally amongst the residents of all of our wards. Apparently, there's a popular saying that in order to win political office in Ypsilanti, all you have to do is appeal to Ward 2. And that does not sit well with me, nor should it sit well with members of Ward 2 or Ward 1 or Ward 3 or anyone really. So hopefully this can serve to kind of bridge some barriers, bridge some gaps, get everybody on the same page. And without further ado, I will turn it over to fellow HRC member, Ron Gaines, and then the fellows. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Gaines. Born and raised here in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Been here for 30 years. I had the pleasure of being sworn in.
Stand closer to the mic.
I had the pleasure of being sworn in with the HRC May 24th. Been serving, working real hard with my other fellow commissioners. Simply, I think it's real simple. We all know when anytime you bring any type of development into a city that it has negative side effects to it. And I haven't seen one time that it's been mentioned the things that can negatively hurt our city. This is not just me speaking from a young black male standpoint, but as on the weekend we passed out a lot of flyers. I had white people telling me that they don't know, that I have a clue what's going on, a few Asian people, blacks. So I say to myself, as a city official, our job is to serve the people in the system. So if we're not getting the information correctly to the people, then it seems like there's a problem and there's something not going on to where the people wouldn't be able to trust our city officials. I think through this whole process, we're not, I don't want people to misinterpret, we are not against new development. We're against the right, we want the right development, and it should benefit the people and the citizens here in Ypsilanti from across all corners, both sides of Michigan Ave, the people who have a little bit less and the people who have a little bit more. We do understand that anytime you bring a new development in, it will benefit mostly the landlords, but we in a city where about 60 to 70% is renters. We should be catering more to the renters. So I'll turn it over to my fellow commissioner, Amber Fellows, and thank you.
Can you hear me? Check.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay, I waited and went out. Check, check. Check, check. Huh? Check. Woo, woo. Check. Okay, we'll just work with that. So, yeah, you know, it's a big crowd, so we have to try to accommodate it. It's difficult, but I'm really, really excited to see as many people be out here as there are tonight. Okay, I'm gonna bear with me. Okay. So, shoot. Alright, I'm just going to start. So, my name is Amber. I'm a 14-year resident of Ypsilanti, and I'm a renter.
One second. We're not going to try it. Relax. You have to keep in mind.
Check, check. Hello? Check, check. Hello? Okay, we have sound. I'm going to talk loudly. So, my name is Amber. I'm a 14-year resident of Ypsilanti, and I'm a renter. I'm here on behalf of the Human Relations Commission and to represent myself and my community, who are largely low-income millennials that make up a significant portion of Ypsi's population. I am a proud resident of Ypsilanti, and I have made a significant investment here in my time as a resident and now as Human Relations Commissioner. Check, check, check. I want to check, 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 check. One,
Your computer might be interfering with it.
I just want to say thank you, Isaac Levine. He brought the PA so we can hear people tonight. All right, group effort. So I am proud to say that the reason why we are here today is due to the effort that myself and other folks in the Human Relations Commission have made in laying out the groundwork since the beginning of this year. We have been working to improve transparency around the hearing process for developer proposals, as well as discuss strategies to combat gentrification in Ypsi. We were finally able to forward a resolution to City Council on September 5th to have this very meeting we're here. And Council passed it in a contentious vote, with Ward 1 and Ward 3 council members approving the resolution to hold this meeting, and Ward 2 council members and the mayor voting against this meeting. I am so grateful that the work has paid off, that council members Richardson, Robb, Murdoch, and Mayor Pro Tem Brown voted to hold this public hearing on International Village and affordable housing, which clearly by the high turnout tonight proves it is much needed discussion on a controversial topic. We finally have a chance to begin this discussion on public record, and it's so hard fought. I just want to say it was really hard fought. Some of the residents in the audience may have had the time and awareness to read the purchase agreement proposal for International Village, which was released to the public a few days ago. But for the many that do not know much about this development, here is a short summary. International Village LLC brought a letter of intent to council in May proposing a major development, upwards of $300 million invested into the 30 acres of city-owned land we know as Water Street. The development would be funded by Global Capital Group and Chinese investment firm Reiki Inc. and would be geared towards international students who are particularly interested, are of particular interest to U of M, Eastern, and Wayne State Universities. It's because they're wealthy. The developer would offer very little money for the land, but would not ask for tax incentives and would cover the $8 to $10 million needed for soil remediation at Water Street. A number of details have changed since May letter of intent. The offer is no longer for $1 an acre. It is now $1,000 an acre, meaning instead of $30 for Water Street, it would be sold for around $30,000. Other important things to know is that the proposed project is to be funded by the EB-5 visa program, which is a controversial incentive for wealthy foreigners to invest in the United States in exchange for visas. Depending on where the investment takes place, EB-5 visa holders would invest at minimum $500,000 for their visa. The EB-5 visa program was originally set to expire this month, which is why city staff on their part have advocated to move on this purchase agreement due to the urgency of the investment incentive program expiration on September 30th. But the United States Congress has once again extended the current EB-5 law to December 8th of this year. So now there is more time. It's important. Our City Council is set to vote on the purchase agreement tomorrow, September 19th, after International Village reps do a presentation on their proposal. The date of the purchase agreement is the same day, this Wednesday, September 21st, that IPSI city officials, including Mayor Edmonds, Mayor Pro Tem Brown, Director of Economic Development Beth Ernat, and Chief of Police Degusti are set to go to China on a trip funded by the Wayne State Chinese Students and Scholars Association. The reason we are here today is to discuss the project at hand, but also how this project and others are set to impact our community as it relates to many things, including housing. In order to begin this discussion, we need to talk about who we are as a city. All right, so who are we? According to the latest census data, of our 20,000 or so residents, we are 64% majority non-family households. We are of many ages, but the median age in Ypsilanti is 25, and millennials comprise of 48% of the population here. We are nearly 2/3 white and 1/3 black. 67% of Ypsilanti are renter households, 67%. Our median income is $31,000, and median income for non-family households is $26,000. According to the HUD definition for low income in our county, which is $46,000 and below, more than 60% of all Ypsilantians are considered low income by this definition, with the majority of that percentage to be in the very low to extremely low income definitions. Over 1/3 of the population in Ypsi live below the federal poverty line, which is much higher than the national average of 14.7%. Of that third of us living under the poverty line, Black folks in Ypsi are overrepresented, comprising of 45% of poverty in Ypsi, and millennials are also notably represented, comprising of 40% of poverty in Ypsi. There is also research from the Washtenaw ASF housing report that shows great income disparity along the lines of race and neighborhoods in Ypsi. Folks that live in Normal Park and College Heights, which is Ward 2, and folks living in the Prospect Park neighborhood of Ward 3 here, tend to be white homeowners with greater amounts of wealth and opportunity in the city, while folks on the east side of Ypsi, downtown, and the south side represent higher amounts of unemployment, poverty, and have less opportunities for attaining higher education. But if you live in Ypsi and interact with the community, you know all of this already. You already understand that Ypsi is largely a young, low-income, racially and economically segregated working-class town, which is economically depressed in comparison to its very affluent neighbor. But we have a lot of pride here in Ypsi, and I'm proud of the people we are, the core values that we have, and I'm proud of our heritage, our enduring Black neighborhoods, and as a working class community, we have made the city what it is today with all its complex history, stretching back beyond modernity. Now let's talk about housing and rent. Despite what some homeowners think, remember we are 60% renters, and this is a legitimate conversation to have. The guideline for fair market rent is benchmarked on the county area median income and HUD definition of affordability. Now, the county's guidelines for fair market rents is $760 a month for an efficiency. It is $850 a month for a one-bedroom apartment and over $1,000 for a two-bedroom. And this is the fair market housing. This is not market rate, which we are now seeing in IFC average of between $850 and $1,000 for a shady little one-bedroom or worse. This same report states that if you work a $10 an hour wage job for 40 hours a week, 52 weeks of the year, affordable for you at maximum is $520 a month. $520 is probably a very familiar amount to a lot of folks in this room, as just being outside of affordability. And so how the heck are we supposed to afford almost twice that amount? According to the County Barrier Busters report, between January of this year and April of this year, 78% of the requests for eviction prevention, cost of move help, etc. were from Ypsilanti. Compare that with the 23% of requests made by Ann Arborites. I know these numbers intimately both as a renter and as a social worker in housing. It was said in one of the May City Council meetings that the EB-5 visa holders may live at International Village, some of them, as well as some of their college-age children. So folks that can now afford to spend $500,000 toward a visa, some of them will potentially move to IFC. IFC, as it is now, does not meet the tastes and desires of international elites. That is what we call induced demand. We are actively courting a new class of super wealthy folks to come to IFC for the aim of capturing their wealth into our community. Over time, savvy business owners and investors, mostly middle-class white folks and international investors, will begin opening up businesses that conform to the desires of the very wealthy people. Businesses, cafes, and restaurants will become even more unaffordable to the average Ypsilantian, and rents will begin to rise even more as upper middle class and affluent folks find that Ypsilanti offers things they are looking for. Low-income Ypsilantians will be pushed out. Then middle-income IFC will begin to move outside the core city and into the township. Domestic and foreign investors will buy up even more than they already have. All the foreclosed homes and much of the market rate properties, homes that are even expensive for IFC standards. They'll also buy in vulnerable areas like the South Side and East IFC, and they'll sit on those properties until the time comes to capture the biggest profit. It is then there will be a major push to redevelop to meet the needs of incoming new class of folks. I am not making up some terrifying story that no one has heard before. I am stating the very thing that happened across the United States and especially next door in Ann Arbor, and what is happening now in Detroit. Ann Arbor's Old West Side used to be a black neighborhood, and white folks that live there now don't even know it. They had even rebranded the neighborhood with a cute name, Water Hill. That is the violence of gentrification. It is to extract the value of working class areas and turn them over to the rich. Rebrand it with cute names and forget anyone else lived there. That is what we are facing. And in our case in IFC, it has already begun. I've heard folks on the South Side talk about not knowing their new neighbors because there's no one in the home. And someone from Ohio or Florida has bought up the houses next door. Our rent rates have spiked dramatically in the last year and a half alone. People I know have become displaced. Some still homeless, living on couch to couch. With this problem many of us are facing, International Village has the potential to exacerbate it, creating a demand on top of an already existent demand, and favoring the super wealthy over the average and low income. This is not right, and this is not just, and this is not the point of a city or a municipality. To quote a resident in Normal Park, we are talking about actual people here. It's not just housing units. Folks are being displaced and pushed out of the community. And these are people that are vital parts of our community. Poor working people exist, whether or not you think it has enough of them. From my perspective as a former poor person, implying that poor and working class people are too much of a burden and someone should take care of them so that we can reap other community benefits is classist and dehumanizing. Also within our County, keep in mind that we are talking about people that cook our food, landscape, clean, provide customer service, childcare, etc. They make our businesses run and make our community successful. We need to go deeper when making statements about diversity and multiculturalism. Attracting a bunch of wealthy immigrants while ignoring the other people of color are displaced from our county is not my ideal of a diverse community. Another resident said, catering to the wealthiest immigrants on the planet at the same time, ICE is aggressively detaining and deporting as many undocumented Mexican immigrants as they can in the same community is not multiculturalism. It's just regular old capitalism with a dose of white nativism and bootstrap politics. At the meeting tomorrow, City Council must ask how much the average rate, the market rate, the luxury housing and condos will be priced at. How many units will be priced that way and what the terms are. Will there be units aimed towards non-student adults? Will there be credit checks and income minimum requirements? Because that is how much Ypsilanti's rentals are functioning these days. These things create barriers to housing. It's when we are thinking about how to respond to the needs of our city that we have to keep in mind who we are as a city and the historical factors and institutional inequities that have reinforced certain barriers like acquiring property and generational wealth, and which communities are affected by these barriers. You can't just say you care about affordable housing. It has to mean something. Residents have to see that you are making the moves and doing something toward making policy and regulations around housing equity and affordability. Referencing an outdated OCED housing report or stringing a list of buzzwords and talking points or recommending a 3-month task force that you dreamt in your head and was not anything any resident came to you and asked for is not being responsive to the issues. Being responsive is to engage residents impacted by these issues and to have them included in the process of developing a plan for preserving affordability. Until the city and county choose to center low-income renters and long-time residents who are vulnerable to displacement, then officials cannot say that they are concerned about affordability in any meaningful sense. We are Ypsilanti. We can do better than this, much better. Traverse City is now including 40% affordability in its new development proposals. An article about it just came out this week. Why aren't we doing this? We have a scary situation to contend with right now, and if you say, well, we are Traverse City, you are right. They were a city of aging homeowners, debutantes, and summerers who are now trying to protect the vulnerable people they have. We are a city of majority vulnerable folks, and we are doing nothing to protect them. That is the difference. One way to protect the existing residents of Ypsi would be to postpone this project, put together a community benefits agreement with substantial affordability component, local job force requirements, and then renegotiate with international village developers. If they say yes, then they can help maybe with the affordability problem while adding housing stock. Many would support a mixed income development. Though there are still some that worry that the 1% coming to town in any form would accelerate gentrification. Also, what is the rush now? This is a highly controversial project. It hasn't had the time for proper public vetting. There hasn't been no consultation with residents, no town halls, no informational interviewing, no reaching out to the 67% of residents who are renters about how this will impact them. And there is still more time for this decision to be made due to the EB-5 visa extension until December. So what is the rush? If you make this decision tomorrow, it will look as if you did it because it's already a done deal. The trip to China this Wednesday is a bad look for our city and makes it seem that votes have been bought. Folks on council should not be going on this trip. this is to express that a business model is no way to run a city, especially a city when the majority of its residents are at risk for displacement. Acting on the short-sightedness of this investment and ignoring the disparate impact International Village will have on IPSI is when we begin to fail our community. We have to understand that as a society, we value wealth over those without. We value whiteness over blackness. You cannot ignore those things in this conversation, especially as we see the makeup of our city to be reflective of majority low income, renters, millennials, and significant minority representation. Yet our council are all homeowners, disproportionately white, middle class, Gen Xers, and boomers. The city leadership is not representative of our demographics, and so you must be extra sensitive to understanding you may not have all the answers for folks you aim to represent. And you might have to bite down on some hard truths and listen when it comes to these conversations. I say this as a Human Relations Commissioner. International Village as it stands now is not responsive to the needs of our residents. Vote no on the purchase agreement tomorrow. Do not vote yes until you have a substantial community benefits agreement already in place. Lastly, the most important new development in this city has seen in a generation is not meant for the people of the city. It means the developers and the interests they represent have control over our futures, which means folks like me and many others in this audience today don't have a future here if you vote yes on this development. That is not just, that is not right, and that is not who we are.
Almost put this city into receivership. The city is very broke, and if the millage, sneaky millage, the only thing on the ballot on the table. You people haven't passed that to bail these jokers out. And I want to add also that every public housing complex in this city has been totally rebuilt. So the poor are rebuilt.
Okay, so right now we're waiting to get the mics reconfigured. So I'm just going to yell the instructions around audience participation. Hopefully you can hear me and keep my voice intact. So next up is our first chance for audience participation. Working on it, 1 second. Audience members have 3 minutes or less, up to 3 minutes to address council. Here's the guidelines, as always, for audience participation. Audience participation is not a back and forth with council. It is a chance for us to listen to you. It is not a chance for us to answer questions or respond to you. We expect audience members on any and all sides of any story to be respectful, both to our city council, to our city staff, and to other audience members. Because I think there are many, many people who would like to address the audience tonight and have a chance for this voice. I would kindly ask that people hold their applause, because that is really going to go into the next time for someone to be able to speak. And we want to hear from as many voices as possible at this time. So I will call your name, and here to make it a little more expedited, I'm going to call someone's name. I'm going to let you know who is next. The next 2 people on the list, so you can be ready sort of during the transition kind of come up. Unless you are physically unable to get to that mic, in which case we will hand you this mic. We want you to come to the podium here. First, you state your name and address for the record. After that, Clerk McMullen will start the timer, and you have up to 3 minutes to address council. When the beeper goes off, your time is done, and I will ask the next person to come up. We really need, so that we can hear from as many voices as possible tonight, to abide to that 3 minutes. to not interrupt people, and of course to be respectful. If people are not, then we're going to need to keep some order here. We are trying to get that microphone working. If I say your name, if you sign up on the list and you choose not to speak, just say pass. If I cannot read your handwriting or I mispronounce your name, I apologize in advance. And once we go through those who have pre-signed up on the list, I will take anyone else from the audience. I'll ask you to raise your hand and I'll call on you to come and join and do the same thing. So that is the process. As always in our meetings, there are actually 2 opportunities for audience participation. This one, and then if we have some discussion at this table, we'll do our best with passing microphones around on this topic. And then there is another chance for audience participation before the close of the meeting. At all public meetings, we have a minimum of 2 chances for audience participation, 1 near the beginning and 1 near the close. And then if we have public hearings at a meeting, we also have a chance if someone's there to speak on a specific topic. This entire meeting, as a special meeting, is about this topic, so audience participation is the appropriate time to speak. There is not another public hearing. Tomorrow night there will be a public hearing as related to the purchase agreement. Clerk McCollum, how are we doing with that being said? We think that it is working. So the first person up is Jerry Dodge, and just on deck we have Ari Allen someone on Madison Street and Frankie. So that's numbers 1, 2, and 3.
My name is Jerry Dodge. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. City Council, thank you.
State your address for the record, please.
I have no address. Thank you, City Council, for your hard work and your dedication to Ypsilanti. I do have to say that I don't feel represented by you. I am not a homeowner, and I often struggle between buying food and paying my rent. I tried living in Ypsilanti City proper for about 9 months and was priced out very quickly. That being said, I would love to support the benefit of a development like International Village. What I would add is I'm not going to support something like that unless I see at least an equal investment and dedication to maintaining not only more affordable housing, but alternative housing. We have such a history here of fighting the mainstream, walking outside the mainstream, which I do in my life, as anybody who knows me can tell you, but creating new ways of solving problems. I see none of that here. I see what I've seen for the last 50 years. I've seen selling out to people who don't need the money at the expense of people who can't afford what's going on around them. And I can tell you that my life has gotten harder and harder and harder economically in the last 20 years. I'm an irresponsible person. I work hard. I have a lot of experience, and I have a great work history, but the older I get, the more difficult it is for me to even survive in this culture. You guys are not helping that at all. I would like to see you help that. I have so much respect for people who dedicate themselves to public service, but I'm not seeing you represent me or so many people I know. I would like to see you dedicate yourselves to some alternatives here. I'd also see you let's see you as a group help people who cannot afford to participate in public service to do so. Why is it that every one of you are a homeowner? Why is it that as much as I have, as many ideas as I have, and as much as I would like to dedicate myself to public service, I can't afford it. I can't afford the time. I can't afford the energy. So, I would like to see our city council dedicate themselves to alternatives, not to what's been going on for the last 50 years in this country and in the city I moved from, because I thought Ypsi would be so different. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ari Allen Foyer. My address is 986 Madison Street. I am a millennial and I've been a proud resident of the first ward of Ypsilanti for 6 years. I'd like to thank Mayor Edmonds and the council for holding this meeting, and I'd also like to
Can you move to the side,
Thank you. I'd like to thank the HRC for presenting to us, and I'd also like to thank everyone who's here to discuss this important decision, which will echo in the history of our city. I'm here to express a strong opinion. The construction of the International Village should not be derailed by a demand that the new housing be rent controlled. At the risk of stating the obvious, housing in Ypsilanti is affordable and always has been. We have some of the cheapest housing in the region and the largest percentage of designated affordable units in the county. There is a huge designated affordable housing development actively under construction in Park Ridge, and as we just found out, another one in the works on Michigan Avenue. And building market rate housing doesn't mean we can't build more affordable housing than we're building now. We have plenty of land. The city can and should make policy to keep housing affordable, and allowing new market rate construction far from preventing affordable housing is actually a critical part of that policy. Cities where market rate construction is constrained in the face of rising demand, like San Francisco and New York, have the worst housing affordability crises in the country. Trying to go down that road in Ypsilanti is not going to help anyone. The International Village development will not hurt the city's ongoing effort to maintain housing affordability, but it will, if done right, help our city in other fundamental areas. It will expand the tax base, add amenities like a downtown supermarket, resolve a pressing environmental cleanup issue, bring new and diverse residents to the city, enhance the profile of both Eastern Michigan University and our local K-12 schools, and create jobs. It will also help to heal our longstanding civic division by finally bringing the story of Water Street to a positive and a definitive end. Many of us have important points of input for this process. We want to make sure that the final plan has enough parking, that it brings tax revenue into the city, and that the retail development is suitable, among other things. But the right way forward is to resolve these concerns and build the International Village. The prospect that Ypsilanti might someday not be the poorest town in the county should not be a horror, but an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. On deck is Jeff Yoder and Mark Murphy. Is Frankie not someone here any longer, or someone who's choosing to pass?
We can't hear you.
Frankie is the person next on the list. I don't see someone coming forward. So this is Jeff Yoder, the next person on the list. So Jeff Yoder, the next up is Mark Higby, and then Jane Schmidtke.
Can you raise the microphone up to?
Yeah, I'm just going to bend over. It looks like...
No.
Thanks, I got it. Thanks so much for holding this meeting. We really appreciate it. I want to say my wife Grace and I, we lived here for a number of years, and only because of recent circumstances we're able to build a house just outside of the community, but we still very much rely on and depend on our livelihoods, depend on the health of this city. So my partner Grace and I wanted to make the point that while we understand that Ypsilanti has needed more income for a long time and development seems like the answer, we don't think that this is the right answer. The gentrification is an issue that makes clear the values clash between the care of people and our land and the nurturing of a corrupt economy. We believe that the road to justice and health in our communities will not make economic sense, and that we think the fact that our economy is fueled by a death urge is fairly evident at this stage of the game. And so we have to reconcile ourselves to this and do things that don't make that kind of sense anymore. We need to be talking and brainstorming about, as a community, about how we'll get all of our needs met when we're up against such a beast. This means that the most vulnerable in our communities need to be absolutely at the center of all economic discussions. They are the ones who are the true measure of our economy's health. We have to stop worshiping the God of progress and stop sacrificing our vulnerable among us. We don't believe it works any other way, and that compromises need to be honestly acknowledged and the damage for the damage that they will cause. We oppose this development because it follows a well-tested pattern of gentrification and will push people we love out of their homes. Our connection to this place is very important to us, and our stability here is fairly recent and largely due to the people who supported us, armed with more money and more power and resources than we had. So we can show our gratitude by remembering that we didn't earn any of it. and that no one has sustainability without the support of their community. This is primary in these discussions. Thank you very much.
And after that is Jordan Solano.
Thank you. I'm Mark B.
Just move it. Just give it a wiggle. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Just hold it.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2. Check.
My thanks to the technical staff. My name is Mark B. I've lived in Ypsilanti for 20 years. My address is 704 Hempville. I am a homeowner. I wasn't when I moved here. And I work in Ypsilanti at Eastern. A couple of things. One, years ago, another lifetime in New York City, I was a tenant organizer and I fought gentrification. But you know, when you gentrify, that means pushing people out. If it's an empty 30-acre lot that the city of Ypsilanti, stupidly in my opinion, spent millions of dollars on, and we aren't going to have paid off until like 10 years from now, then it's not really gentrification if somebody builds new housing there, because no one else has been moved out. I understand the argument that Amber, if I remember your name right, was making, that the spillover effect, too much economic growth, too many high-income people, they will then eventually possibly push others out by driving up prices. But so it's complicated, but it's been made simple here. It is not actual gentrification when you build new housing on a lot that's empty, that has never had housing. And it will take hundreds of millions of dollars. In my opinion, if council approves this purchase agreement, everything as planned, there's still a probability that the International Village will not be built, because it's a risky, big capital investment on a brownfield. No one else is going to come forward with hundreds of millions of dollars to build anything there. It will be empty and probably, in my estimation, forever. We have the cities virtually bankrupt because the city decided to become real estate investors without knowing what the hell they were doing. None of the people on council were there or responsible for that, and I think most of us here weren't either responsible for it. So there are no investors coming forward with something else. We had a Burger King offer, the council turned it down. A dollar store, the council accepted that, and the county recreation center that was going to be built, but it took forever and they backed out of it. And a couple other possible deals, but nobody had yet come forward and put actual money on the table, which my understanding of capital development is that's what's required. And the city of Ypsilanti does not have that. So all the horror stories, and they're true horror stories, of people in the city who are hungry, who are in desperate need of making this month and next month's rent, who are in need of jobs, all of that is true. Stopping the International Village will not solve their problems.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jane Schmidt, he's before you, but Jane, are you willing to go right after?
She said she yields.
So my name is Jordan. I live at 905 Cross Street. I am 23 and I've been a lifelong resident of Ypsilanti. I have watched this town struggle through my entire life to pay for police, for parks, for heck, even streetlights, for roads, and frankly, any development, and then even dumpsters at points. And with that knowledge, he basically summed up most of what I needed to say in terms of this is not gentrification. I am currently a city, regional, and urban planner, and because this is an empty field, it's not going to lead to extra gentrification. And hear me out, part of the reason we know this is because Ann Arbor has currently reached the point where the rents are too high and developers are backing out. They're having the opposite issue that we are, where because no one can afford the $1,000, $2,000 rents, they're stopping building. And they have plenty of room available for extra development there. And so do we. If they're backing out, we're definitely not going to see any additional development beyond this. We need this opportunity because otherwise, if we hit another recession, if we have that population loss that we saw previously, I don't know how we continue paying for things. And I have to say, this is a really special city. The fact that we have our own recycling services, the fact that we have our own police department, the fact that we actually didn't go into receivership at any point is really, really impressive. So that said, I also think everyone needs to be very worried about the fact that DTE is currently building a new Water Street industrial development, literally identical, a mile east of Huron Michigan Avenue. It has a giant pipeline that will cross the Huron River. That's what you all need to really be worried about, because that could destroy our ecosystem, could cause massive fire. That is a huge problem, and that's also being done completely under the table with all of your guys' knowledge not being included, no one's public opinion. They're not having any sort of public meeting like this. They're just trying to build a massive, massive facility to get money. That said, this site is also, we know that it's just an investment hole. I think we don't need to actually be worried about driving up anyone else's rents. That said, we do need rent control. We need more affordable housing. That is not a problem. Yes, that is absolutely an issue here. I struggle with rents here. They are getting really high. But that said, this site is not accessible to EMU. It doesn't have good transit access. It certainly isn't accessible to U of M or Wayne State. It literally is just an investment site. And the fact that someone's willing to come in and pay for it and clean it up, it's not really going to be that bad of a thing. I feel like this is a one-time thing. We should accept this opportunity while we have it. That said, our landlords are kind of out of control. The rents are rising really quickly here. I know that is an output of Ann Arbor's rent prices going up, and we really should start addressing that through rent control, through occupancy taxes. That would be beneficial. Thank you.
I just want to check in. Jane, again, you'd rather not speak at this time?
She passes.
She passes. Okay, so next up we have Quinn Phillips. On deck is Alan Exusted and then Robert and Barnes. So Quinn Phillips is next.
Hi, I'm Quinn Phillips. I live at 414 Emmett Street. I've lived in Ypsilanti for about 11 years now. Thank you to the members of City Council who voted to make this meeting possible, and also to HRC for all their hard work on this. I understand that the city is in a financial crisis and that compromises have to be made in order to address the debt. It hurts, however, to discuss housing developments on public land that do not meet our current housing needs. It hurts to hear the mayor describe Ypsilanti as currently affordable when some long-term residents are already being priced out. It hurts that we were led to believe that the Water Street millage would solve this debt problem. Many of us campaigned and voted for it only to be told that it's not enough. My sister was a renter in Ypsi several years ago. She moved away, but 3 years ago, she decided to return to be closer to me. I told her not to come back to Ypsi because of the skyrocketing rents, and I thought it would make it impossible for her to afford housing while working for minimum wage. Sure enough, she rented a room, got behind on rent, and became homeless 6 months later. After 2 years of living on the street, she got into an affordable housing unit in Ann Arbor, which was only available to her because her life was in imminent danger. Affordable housing that accepts Section 8 saved my sister's life. I absolutely agree that Ann Arbor is not creating enough affordable housing to address the need in this county. However, when a city council member says that Ypsilanti is taking on much of the county's affordable housing burden, it hurts. It is like saying that my sister and her need to have a roof over her head is a burden on this county. It is like saying that my friends who are on the verge of homelessness despite having jobs and advanced degrees are a burden. If you frame affordable housing as a burden, don't expect us to believe that if we support the International Village, the city will have more resources to allocate to affordable housing. The trickle-down theory does not work in the housing market or anywhere. I feel that the city council members who support this development, as it is proposed, are out of touch with the needs of lower income residents. I urge you to vote no on this and any development which does not have an affordable housing component. Thank you.